Hello, everyone, and welcome to Real World, Real Stories. I am James, and I am very happy you are here with us today.
And I am Olivia. This is the podcast where we talk about important world events in slow, clear English. We make it easy to understand. This channel is especially for people who are learning English and want to know what is happening in the world.
So before we start today, please take a moment and do something for us. If you are watching on YouTube, please click the like button below this video. It really helps our channel grow. And please subscribe so you never miss a new episode. Write your country in the comments below. We love to see where our listeners are from.
And if you know someone who is also learning English, please share this video with them. Learning together is always better.
Now, let us begin. I want to ask you something. Imagine you are holding a glass of water. Simple, right? But think about this. Where did that water come from? A river? A mountain? Now imagine that someone, thousands of kilometers away, is building a massive wall across that river. A wall so big it is the largest structure of its kind in human history.
That is not a film. That is happening right now. China has started building the world's biggest hydropower dam, a dam on the Yarlung Tsangpo River in Tibet. And this project could change energy, politics, and water supplies for hundreds of millions of people.
Today, we're going to talk about this incredible project. We will explain what it is, why China is building it, who could be affected, and what might happen next.
This is a big topic, so we have organized today's episode into several parts. We'll start with the background, what is happening and why. Then we'll talk about the geography. After that, we'll discuss the key players, the countries and organizations involved. Then we'll look at the economic side. And finally, we'll talk about possible future scenarios.
And throughout the episode, we will teach you some important English vocabulary. You will hear words that are useful for talking about news, energy, and international relations. We will always explain these words clearly when we use them.
Remember, you do not need to understand every single word. Just listen, relax, and let your brain absorb the English. This is how language learning works best, through real content, real context, and real stories.
So, let us dive in. Our topic today is China's mega dam and how it could affect the world's energy future.
James, before we go into details, I think it is important to say why we are talking about this now. This is not just a story about one country building one dam. This is a story about energy, water, climate, and power, all at the same time.
Absolutely, Olivia. And you are right. The world is going through a big energy transition right now. That means the world is moving away from oil and gas and towards cleaner energy sources like wind, solar, and hydro. Hydro means energy from water. China is at the center of this transition.
And this dam project, which is called the Medog Hydropower Station, is a perfect example of that. On one hand, it is a clean energy project. It does not burn coal or oil. On the other hand, it raises serious questions about water, the environment, and the relationship between countries.
Exactly. And we want to be very clear from the beginning, we are not here to say China is right or wrong. We are not here to support any political side. Our goal is to give you a balanced, educational view of all sides of this story.
Yes, think of it like a puzzle. Today, we are going to look at all the pieces together. Where does each piece come from? How do they fit? And what picture do they make when you put them all together?
That is a great way to think about it, Olivia. Listeners, we are going to cover geography, history, economy, key players, risks, and future scenarios. This episode has a lot of information, so please feel free to pause, rewind, and listen again. That is perfectly fine, and it is actually very good for your English.
Let us start with the basics. What exactly is happening? On July 19, 2025, China officially started the construction of the Medog Hydropower Station. This is a hydropower dam, a dam that uses the power of moving water to produce electricity.
The dam is on the Yarlung Tsangpo River in Tibet. Tibet is a region in the southwest of China, high in the Himalayan mountains. The project was announced by Chinese Premier Li Qiang at an official ceremony in the city of Ningqi.
Now here is the first vocabulary word for today. The word is hydropower. Hydro, H-Y-D-R-O, means water. So hydropower means electricity that comes from the force of moving water. When water falls down from a high place, it moves very fast. That movement creates energy. A dam captures that energy and turns it into electricity. Think of it like a giant water wheel.
Good explanation, James. So, why is this dam so special? Because it is not just big, it is record-breaking. The Medog project will have a total power capacity of 60 gigawatts. Now, that number is hard to imagine, so let me give you a comparison.
Please, Olivia, because I think our listeners need to picture this.
Of course, the current largest dam in the world is China's own Three Gorges Dam. The Three Gorges Dam produces about 22.5 gigawatts. The new Medog Dam will produce 60 gigawatts. That is nearly 3 times more. In fact, experts say the dam will generate about 300 billion kilowatt hours of electricity every year. That is roughly equal to the total annual electricity consumption of the United Kingdom, the entire country of the UK, from Scotland to London.
That is an extraordinary number. Think about that. One dam producing as much electricity as an entire major European country uses in a whole year. And the cost? The project is estimated to cost 1.2 trillion Chinese yuan. That is approximately 170 billion US dollars. This makes it the most expensive infrastructure project in Chinese history. So how did we get here? Why is China building this now? Ask yourself, what would make a country spend $170 billion on one project? The answer has several parts.
First, China has made big promises about climate change. China has committed to reaching peak carbon emissions by 2030. That means China has promised that its CO2 pollution will stop growing by 2030 and will start to fall. And China has also committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2060. Carbon neutral means that China will not add more CO2 to the atmosphere than it takes away.
To do this, China needs massive amounts of clean energy, and hydropower is one of the most reliable clean energy sources available. China already produces more hydropower than any other country, about 425 gigawatts. But the Tibetan Plateau still has huge untapped potential, more than 110 gigawatts of possible energy that has not been used yet.
Untapped is our second vocabulary word. Untapped, U-N-T-A-P-P-E-D, means something that exists but has not been used yet. Imagine a barrel of water with no hole in it. The water is there, but you cannot get it out yet. That is untapped potential. Tibet's rivers are like that barrel, full of energy that China now wants to access.
Precisely, Olivia. And the Yarlung Tsangpo River offers something truly unique. It is not just any river. The geography of this river makes it one of the most powerful natural energy sources on the planet.
Let us now talk about geography. James, can you explain where exactly this dam is being built?
Of course. The Yarlung Tsangpo River starts on the Tibetan Plateau, one of the highest places on Earth, sometimes called the roof of the world. The plateau is about 4,500 meters above sea level. That is 4.5 kilometers high. For comparison, the top of Mont Blanc in Europe is about 4,800 meters. So Tibet is like standing on top of the Alps, but it is a flat plateau, not just a mountain peak.
The river flows eastward across Tibet. Then, near the eastern edge of the Himalayas, something extraordinary happens. The river makes a sharp U-turn, a huge bend, and then drops down into a very deep canyon.
This canyon is called the Yarlung Tsangpo Grand Canyon. It is actually the deepest canyon in the world, deeper than the Grand Canyon in the USA. And in this canyon, the river falls about 2,000 meters, that is, 2 kilometers, in just 50 kilometers of horizontal distance.
Think about that. Imagine you are driving a car for 50 kilometers on a motorway. That's about 30 minutes of driving. In that same distance, the river drops 2 kilometers down. That is an incredibly steep gradient, which means the water moves with tremendous force and speed.
And that force is exactly what makes this location perfect for a hydropower dam. The faster and the more forcefully the water moves, the more electricity it can produce. The Yarlung Tsangpo Canyon is essentially a natural power station, one of the most powerful on Earth.
The engineering plan is fascinating and very complex. Because the terrain is so mountainous, the engineers are planning to build 4 tunnels, each about 20 kilometers long, directly through the mountains. The water will be redirected through these tunnels into underground power stations, where turbines will generate electricity. The word turbine, T-U-R-B-I-N-E, is our 4th vocabulary word. A turbine is a machine that spins when water or air passes through it. When it spins, it produces electricity. Think of it like a very powerful fan, but instead of using electricity to spin, it spins to create electricity.
Now here is the strategic part. The Yarlung Tsangpo does not stay in China. After it leaves Tibet and passes through this canyon, it crosses the border into India, where it is called the Brahmaputra River. Then it flows through the Indian states of Arunachal Pradesh and Assam. Finally, it enters Bangladesh, where it is known as the Jamuna River.
And this is where the situation becomes more complicated. The Brahmaputra is not just a river, it is a lifeline. That is, it is absolutely essential for life. More than 130 million people in India and Bangladesh depend on this river for drinking water, farming, and fishing.
So when China builds a dam high up in Tibet, it has the potential to affect all of these people downstream. Downstream, D-O-W-N-S-T-R-E-A-M, is our 4th vocabulary word. Downstream means the direction that water flows. If you are standing in a river, the water flows past you and continues downstream, away from you, towards lower ground. So India and Bangladesh are downstream from China's dam.
And this is why the geography of this dam is so strategically important. It is not just about energy, it is about control of water. And water, as we know, is life.
Now let us talk about the key players. Who are the main actors in this story? What do they want? And where do their interests conflict?
The first and most obvious player is China. China's goals are clear. First, it wants more clean energy to meet its climate targets. Second, it wants to develop the Tibet region economically. Building this dam will create thousands of jobs and bring electricity and infrastructure to a remote area. Third, there is a strategic element. Having control over a major river that flows into neighboring countries gives China significant geopolitical leverage. Geopolitical, that is another key word.
Let me explain that. Geopolitical, G-E-O-P-O-L-I-T-I-C-A-L, means relating to politics and power, especially as connected to geography. So geopolitical leverage means using your geographic position to gain political or strategic advantages. Think of it like this. If you live upstream at the top of a river, you have power over the people who live downstream. You can control how much water they receive. That is geopolitical leverage.
Exactly. The second key player is India. India is very concerned about this project. India and China already have a difficult relationship. They have disputed borders, they have had military confrontations in recent years, and they compete for influence in South Asia.
From India's perspective, a Chinese dam controlling the flow of the Brahmaputra is a serious security concern. The Brahmaputra provides water for tens of millions of Indian farmers and citizens. If China were to reduce the water flow, for example during a political dispute, it could cause serious harm to Indian agriculture and water supplies.
In response, India has announced plans to build its own large hydropower dam in the state of Arunachal Pradesh. India's planned dam will have a capacity of between 10 and 12 gigawatts. While it is much smaller than China's, it sends a clear political message. India is not going to simply accept China's dominance over this river.
Absolutely, Olivia. And there is a historical parallel here that is worth mentioning. In the 20th century, Egypt and Sudan had similar tensions with Ethiopia over the Nile River. Ethiopia built the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, a huge hydropower dam on the Blue Nile. Egypt was deeply worried about losing its water supply. The situation caused years of diplomatic tension and negotiations. Today, the Yarlung Tsangpo situation has similar characteristics, a powerful upstream country building a major dam, while downstream countries worry about water security. History, it seems, often repeats itself.
That is a very insightful parallel, James. And the third key player is Bangladesh. Bangladesh is one of the most densely populated countries in the world and one of the most vulnerable to climate change. The Jamuna River, the Brahmaputra in Bangladesh, is essential for agriculture and fishing. Changes to the river's flow or the quantity of sediment it carries could have serious consequences for millions of Bangladeshis. Sediment, sediment, means the small particles of sand, soil, and minerals that a river carries. These particles are extremely important for farming because they make the soil fertile, rich and good for growing crops.
And there is also a fourth player, the international community, including environmental organizations and scientific researchers. Many scientists and environmental groups have raised concerns about this project. They worry about the effect on local ecosystems and about the risks of building such a massive structure in a seismically active zone. Seismically active means an area where earthquakes happen frequently. The region near the Medog Dam site was the location of one of the most powerful earthquakes ever recorded, a magnitude 8.6 earthquake in 1950.
China's response to these concerns has been that the dam design is safe and that the project uses a run-of-the-river approach. Run-of-the-river is an important term. It means that instead of creating a large reservoir, a large artificial lake, the dam simply uses the natural flow of the river as it passes. This supposedly reduces the environmental impact compared to traditional dams.
However, independent scientists have said that even run-of-the-river dams can significantly affect sediment transport and fish migration. According to research published in the journal Advancing Earth and Space Sciences, large dams in this region threaten 218 species of fish, including economically important species like hilsa and mahseer.
And we should remember, this is not just about fish. The livelihoods of approximately 2 million fishermen in India and Bangladesh could be affected. These are real people, families who depend on the river to earn their living.
Let us now turn to the economic side of this story. Ask yourself, why would any country invest $170 billion in a single dam? What is the economic logic?
For China, the answer is straightforward. China has the world's largest economy in terms of purchasing power, and it is also the world's largest consumer of energy. In 2023, China consumed about 9,000 terawatt-hours of electricity, more than the USA and the European Union combined.
And China's energy demand is still growing. As more Chinese people buy electric cars, use air conditioning, and expand their industries, the demand for electricity keeps increasing. The government needs to meet this demand with clean energy. Otherwise, it will have to keep burning coal, which creates pollution and CO2 emissions.
The Medog Dam, once complete, will produce 300 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity per year. To give you another comparison, that is enough electricity to power approximately 200 million average Chinese homes for a year. That is a lot of homes.
It is. And economically, hydropower is very attractive once it is built. The initial construction cost is very high. $170 billion is enormous. But once the dam is operating, the running costs are very low. There is no need to buy fuel. You just use the water, which flows naturally. So over the long term, over 50 or 100 years, the dam could generate enormous returns on investment.
And there is another economic dimension. This dam will be part of China's larger Belt and Road Initiative, a massive Chinese program to build infrastructure across Asia, Africa, and Europe to expand trade and Chinese influence. The electricity produced in Tibet could eventually be transmitted to other parts of China and possibly even to neighboring countries through high-voltage electricity lines.
Now, what about the economic effects on India and Bangladesh? This is where the picture becomes more complex. On one hand, if China manages the dam responsibly and cooperates with downstream countries, there could be benefits. For example, better flood control during monsoon season. The Brahmaputra causes devastating floods in Assam every year during the monsoon. A well-managed dam upstream could potentially reduce the severity of those floods.
On the other hand, if water flow is reduced during dry season, farmers in Assam and Bangladesh could face serious water shortages. Agriculture in these regions depends on the Brahmaputra for irrigation, for watering their crops. If the river becomes less reliable, food production could fall, prices could rise, and millions of farmers could lose their income.
And here is an important economic concept, the idea of a shared resource. When a resource, like a river, crosses multiple countries, it becomes a shared or transboundary resource. Managing shared resources fairly is one of the hardest challenges in international relations. There are international legal frameworks for this, but they are not always followed. There is currently no water-sharing agreement between China and India for the Brahmaputra. China has not signed the 1997 United Nations Convention on the Law of Non-Navigational Uses of International Watercourses, the main international treaty on shared rivers. This means there is no legally binding framework to protect India or Bangladesh from potential water diversion. Think about this from an everyday perspective. Imagine you share a garden hose with your neighbor. There's plenty of water for both of you, but one day your neighbor builds a large tank and starts storing a lot of the water before it reaches you. You did not agree to this, and there is no rule that says how much water each of you should get. This is the situation that India and Bangladesh are in.
Now let us look ahead. What might happen next? We're going to explore 3 possible scenarios. Remember, these are not predictions. They are possible futures based on current trends and information.
Scenario 1. Cooperative management in dialogue. In this scenario, China, India, and Bangladesh enter into serious negotiations and agree on a formal water-sharing agreement. China agrees to share hydrological data, information about water levels and flow, in real time. Both countries agree on minimum water flow levels that must be maintained. Under this scenario, the dam could actually be a net positive for the region. It could provide cleaner energy, and better water management could reduce monsoon flooding.
This scenario is possible, but it requires a significant improvement in China-India relations. Right now, those relations are tense. In 2020, Chinese and Indian soldiers had a deadly confrontation in the Galwan Valley in the Himalayas. Relations have improved somewhat since then, but deep mistrust remains.
Scenario 2. Strategic water tension and competition. In this scenario, negotiations fail or produce only limited results. China continues to build the dam without a binding agreement with downstream countries. India accelerates its own dam-building program on the Brahmaputra. The river becomes a source of ongoing tension and a tool of political pressure, similar to what has happened with the Nile between Ethiopia and Egypt.
Under this scenario, the people who suffer most are ordinary farmers and fishermen in Assam and Bangladesh, people who have no power over these political decisions, but whose lives depend entirely on the river.
Scenario 3. Environmental crisis. In this scenario, the dam construction causes significant ecological damage. Earthquake activity in the region, which scientists say is a real risk, damages the dam or its tunnels. Or the disruption to sediment flow causes massive changes to the river ecosystem, leading to the collapse of fish populations and loss of fertile farmland downstream.
This is the most serious scenario, but also, engineers would say, the least likely, assuming the project is built to the highest safety standards. China has enormous engineering expertise and experience building large dams. It has learned from the construction of the Three Gorges Dam, and the Medog project will incorporate those lessons.
That said, no large engineering project in an earthquake zone is completely without risk. The history of dam failures around the world, including China's own Banqiao Dam disaster in 1975, shows that even well-built structures can fail under extreme conditions.
Ask yourself, which of these three scenarios do you think is most likely? There is no single right answer, but thinking through possibilities calmly and logically is a very important skill, both for understanding the world and for practicing English.
Now let us talk about the challenges. This project sounds impressive, but it faces enormous obstacles, both technical and political.
The technical challenges are extraordinary. The construction site is in one of the most remote and difficult areas on Earth. The altitude, the height above sea level, is very high. The terrain is extremely rugged and mountainous. The region receives heavy monsoon rains and is prone to landslides when large amounts of soil and rock slide down a mountain slope.
Workers will need to drill 4 tunnels, each 20 kilometers long, through active geological faults, cracks in the Earth's crust where earthquakes originate. This kind of work requires extremely advanced engineering and constant monitoring. Even small mistakes could have catastrophic consequences.
The cost is another major challenge. $170 billion is a huge investment, and large infrastructure projects often go over budget and over time. If China's economy slows down, as some economists predict, finding the money to complete this project could become more difficult.
And politically, China will face growing international pressure. As the project progresses, environmental organizations, governments, and international media will scrutinize every decision. If there are any incidents, environmental damage, water flow reductions, accidents, the diplomatic pressure on China will increase significantly.
Scrutinize. Scrutinise is a useful vocabulary word. It means to examine something very carefully and critically. Journalists scrutinize politicians' decisions, scientists scrutinize research results, and the world will certainly scrutinize China's management of this dam.
There is also the challenge of China-India relations more broadly. Even if China is genuinely committed to responsible management of the dam, India may not trust Chinese assurances. When two countries have a history of military tension and territorial disputes, trust is very difficult to build.
And finally, there is the challenge of climate itself. The Tibetan Plateau is warming faster than almost any other region on Earth. Glaciers, large masses of ice in the mountains, are melting rapidly. In the short term, this actually increases river flow, but in the longer term, as glaciers disappear, the rivers they feed will carry less water. This means that the dam may eventually produce less electricity than planned.
Let us zoom out and think about the bigger picture. What are the long-term consequences of this project, not just for China, India, and Bangladesh, but for the world?
First, and most positively, this dam could become a major milestone in global clean energy development. If China succeeds in building the world's most powerful hydropower station, it will demonstrate that large-scale renewable energy is possible, even in the most challenging environments. This could inspire other countries to invest more in hydropower.
Second, this project could reshape the power balance in South Asia. If China controls the water that flows into India and Bangladesh, it gains significant strategic influence over two of the world's most populous countries. This shift in power could affect trade deals, diplomatic agreements, and even military calculations in the region for decades to come.
Third, this project raises important questions about international water law. The world currently has very weak legal frameworks for managing shared rivers. The Yarlung Tsangpo Brahmaputra Yamuna Basin could become a test case, a situation that shows whether international cooperation on water resources is possible, or whether powerful countries will always prioritize their own interests.
And fourth, and this is a lesson for all of us, this story shows how connected the world really is. A decision made in Beijing about a river in Tibet can directly affect a farmer in Assam or a fisherman in Bangladesh. The actions of one country ripple out across borders, affecting millions of people who had no part in making the decision.
That is a profound point, James, and it is one of the reasons why understanding global news is so important, even if you live far from Tibet or South Asia. What happens there can eventually affect energy prices, food prices, and global politics in ways that touch all of us.
Now, as we promised, let us review the key vocabulary from today's episode. These are words that will be very useful for you, not just for understanding news about this dam, but for understanding many global news stories.
Our first word was hydropower. Hydro means water. Hydropower, or hydroelectric power, is electricity that is generated from the force of moving water. You can use this word when you talk about energy, climate policy, and infrastructure. For example, many countries are investing in hydropower as a clean energy source.
Our second word was untapped. Untapped means something that exists but has not been used yet. You can use this word in many contexts. For example, this region has untapped economic potential, meaning it has opportunities that have not been developed yet.
Our third word was turbine. A turbine is a machine with blades that spins when water, wind, or steam passes through it, generating electricity. You will see this word in stories about wind energy, hydropower, and jet engines. For example, the dam uses water turbines to generate electricity.
Our fourth word was downstream. Downstream means in the direction that a river flows, towards lower ground. Upstream is the opposite, in the direction from which the water comes. These words are also used metaphorically. For example, in business, you might say, downstream effects of this decision will be felt for years. This means effects that come later as a result of an earlier action.
Our fifth word was sediment. Sediment is the sand, soil, and minerals that a river carries and deposits along its banks and at its mouth. Sediment is very important for agriculture because it makes soil fertile. For example, dams often reduce the amount of sediment that reaches downstream farmland.
Our sixth word was geopolitical. Geopolitical means relating to politics and power, especially as connected to geography. This is a word you will see very often in news stories about international relations. For example, the dam has significant geopolitical implications for South Asia.
And our seventh word was scrutinize. To scrutinize something means to examine it very carefully and critically. Politicians' decisions are scrutinized by journalists. Scientific studies are scrutinized by other scientists. For example, the international community will scrutinize China's management of the dam closely.
Excellent review, Olivia. Listeners, try to use these 7 words this week. You could write a short paragraph about today's topic using all 7 words. That is a great way to practice your English and remember new vocabulary.
We are coming to the end of today's episode. Let us summarize what we have learned.
Lesson number 1. China is building the world's largest hydropower dam, the Medog Hydropower Station on the Yarlung Tsangpo River in Tibet.
With a planned capacity of 60 gigawatts, it will produce nearly 3 times more electricity than the current largest dam in the world, the Three Gorges Dam.
Lesson number 2. This project is part of China's broader strategy to achieve clean energy and meet its climate commitments. China wants to reach peak carbon emissions by 2030 and carbon neutrality by 2060. Hydropower is a key part of this plan.
Lesson number 3. The dam has significant consequences beyond China's borders. The Yarlung Tsangpo becomes the Brahmaputra in India and the Jamuna in Bangladesh. More than 130 million people downstream depend on this river for water, farming, and fishing. The lack of a formal water-sharing agreement between China and India is a serious concern.
Lesson number 4. The future of this project is uncertain. There are 3 possible scenarios: international cooperation, strategic tension, or environmental risk. Which scenario becomes reality will depend on diplomatic decisions made in the coming years by China, India, Bangladesh, and the international community.
And perhaps the most important lesson of all, understanding complex global events like this one is not just useful for your English. It helps you understand how the world really works, how energy, politics, water, and the environment are all connected.
As English learners, every episode you listen to is also building your vocabulary, your listening skills, and your ability to think about the world in another language. That is an incredible achievement. Be proud of yourself for being here today.
We really mean that. Slow, patient listening to real English content, like this podcast, is one of the most effective ways to improve your language skills. You do not need a textbook. You just need curiosity and patience.
And we hope that this episode has given you both curiosity about the world and patience with the English language.
Before we finish, please, if you enjoyed this episode, take one moment and click the like button. It really helps other English learners find our channel. And please subscribe so you get our new episodes automatically.
Write your country in the comments below. We always read them, and we love to see where our global community is from. And if you have an opinion about today's topic, the Medog Dam, China's energy strategy, or the situation with India and Bangladesh, please share it in the comments. We would love to hear your thoughts.
And if you know a friend or a colleague who is also learning English, please share this video with them. Learning together makes the journey so much more enjoyable.
We will leave you with this thought. The world is a complex and fascinating place. Every river tells a story. Every dam raises questions. Every question is an invitation to learn more about the world and about the language you are using to understand it.
Stay curious, stay calm, keep learning, and we will see you in the next episode of Real World, Real Stories.
See you soon, everyone. Take care.
Goodbye.